right, ladies and gentlemen, on the guest list this week, something special for you guys. We have the drummer of Slipknot, Mr. Jay Weinberg. Jay, how are we, brother?
Hello, I'm doing well. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. This is a goddamn honor, man. We have had your drum tech on the podcast before. We've had Justin Nace on here.
Yeah, Justin's the man. He's my man.
I toured with Justin. My band toured with Paris many years ago, and Justin, as you know, the nicest human being on earth. So became.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
We had about 100 questions about your setup, and now we actually get it from the horse's mouth. So I'm really, really fucking excited about this.
To be fair, Justin probably knows more like intricate details about the stuff I'm like, the drums and everything than even I do. Like he's incredibly talented. And that's even why I knew I wanted to bring him on, even though he had not drum tech before, but I just knew him as like a great friend and a great drummer. That I was like, I think like this would be awesome just to have like just so we could be around each other and hang out all the time and stuff. And it's like you'll be with drums and it'll be great. And he's proven to be just a fantastic drum tech, super knowledgeable and great guy to have on the road.
It's almost like golf caddies and golfers. Like half the time the caddies are as good as the pros.
Well, that's like that's for real. Like when you have a great partner in that kind of tandem, because it really is like a partnership up there. Like with everything as chaotic as it is on stage, you need to rely on someone keeping everything in check and well oiled and stuff like that. So the fact that there's often most things I'm not even aware of. Like I know what he's doing and stuff, and that it takes a lot of hard work. But the fact that nothing up there is even a question mark is like that's how good he is at what he does. So I'm incredibly thankful for
you said, it's a partnership, right? Where it's like, as if I have my front of house guy, I don't give a shit what the conditions are. I know we're good to go. We had Bob Strakel for years doing our sound.
The man. Yeah, Bob's the man.
Legendary front of house guy with the heaviest drum shit. Oh, that's awesome.
Well, on the flip side of that, if you don't have your guys that you're used to, it's a scary prospect. Like I don't even think I could play a gig if I didn't have our crew with. I'd be like, I can't do it.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you mentioned Bob. So Bob was actually the first person who had ever mixed me playing drums in front of anyone ever.
No shit.
Yeah. So he used to do front of house for the band The Bouncing Souls.
Yeah, love.
Great, friends and heroes of mine from New Jersey. And so I had gotten up with them and played a song at like a secret show they played because they were playing a festival in Asbury Park. This is like back in 2004 or 5. And they covered a Springsteen song, Growing Up. And they like my dad and I have been going to Bouncing Souls shows and stuff for a while. And they were like, oh, maybe it'd be cool if Max sat in. And so they rehearsed that with him. And then they had a secret show the night before that festival at the Asbury Lanes, this rad
sick venue.
Yes, it's classic, Asbury Park staple. And I had never played drums in front of anybody in my life. Like not even my family or anything like that.
Wow.
But I had when they had practiced growing up with my dad, I was like, hey, I know some Bouncing Souls songs. Can I play with you guys, play one or two with you guys? And they're like, yeah, sure. And so I actually got up at that secret show at the Asbury Lanes, and Bob was mixing them. And so I've known Bob since I was like 13 or 14 years old. And so then when I found out he was our new front of house guy, I was like overjoyed. I couldn't believe it that he was.
Shout out to Bob, that beer drinking, cheeseburger eating, skateboarding, fucking badass, man.
I love Bob.
I do appreciate listening to all you guys talk about your touring front of the house guys, because I am I'm the slumlord over here. I'm a big guy where I go to every venue and I have like Nighthawk in the back with a mohawk and like a cutoff shirt who's mixing our shit and being like, can you just fucking check already so I can get out of here? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is a really nice thing. Like, it must have been nice to just go right to a fucking pro like that. God damn.
I mean, Bob's the best. I love how he mixes us, especially because we're kind of like, we're a super weird band where there's a lot going on and a lot of information to process, to where it could all kind of sound like a big wall of noise, but he gets every little detail about what we're doing up there and he understands it. So
I've asked him before, I'm like, what's that fucking input list look like, man?
Oh my God.
It's gotta be
crazy.
How many microphones do you think Slipknot uses on a given night?
Oh, I have no clue. I mean, there's easily what between like 30 and 40 or something on my
Jesus
drums alone. No, I mean maybe not that many, but like there's a whole lot. There's a lot of stuff going on up there, and it's all it's all happening in real time. It's a lot to process, and mix to get every element in there. But he does.
I mean, how did you wind up with the opportunity to want to becoming the drummer of Slipknot? Like, how did that come together?
Well, my friendship with the guys goes back 22 years. We met each other in the summer of 2001, shortly before their second album had come out. And that was my introduction to heavy music, to heavy metal, in general. And so I was completely overwhelmed and found, my favorite new band and wanted to know everything about it. And fortunately, they would tour so often that they'd come through my area, like several times a year. So they kind of saw me grow up, from when I was like, we met when I was 10. And then when I enter like my teens and stuff, and now I'm like old enough to take the train into New York or down like the New Jersey coast to see them play or whatever. I'd be a little more knowledgeable about this style of music. They're like, oh, you're wearing a Slayer shirt. Oh, you're wearing a Venom shirt and this and that, like they saw that I was kind of doing my homework. And then of course, like once I got into a certain age and started touring myself, we kind of like, we didn't see each other all that much, probably between the years of like 2009 and 2013 or so. But yeah, the circumstance presented itself where they were in need of a drummer. They had known me since I was a child and were aware of, the things that I had done. And probably most significantly was filling in for my dad with Bruce and the E Street Band. I think that to them signaled that it's like, okay, he's used to like high pressure situations, and
Right.
There is no more high pressure situation than Slipknot. So I think they kind of figured that would kind of lend itself to, if I knew this music and they knew I knew all the details about the band, that they wouldn't have to teach somebody about the band or what the band stands for or means, to the guys in it. That we'd be able to just play once and pick up right from there, and that's what we did. So they asked me to join. The next day we started working on an album that became my first album with the band, and this is back in like early 2014, late 2013.
Jeez, dude, I gotta ask, from that, like, even as a metalhead and an incredible drummer, like Slipknot it's a fucking different thing. Was there a learning curve? Did you have to like, what was there pressure of like, oh shit, this is different, or was this like just another walk in the park for Jay Weinberg?
Definitely not a walk in the park. Nothing about Slipknot's a walk in the park. Nothing about it is easy. Nothing about it is comfortable. But I knew that going in. I understood that element of the band is that it's demanding of everybody within it. It demands everything you got. And as you go forward and as you learn more and more about it, you start to uncover there's even more and more to learn and stuff. So really, yeah, so it is a constant learning curve. I think that's probably the hallmark of any good band, is that anybody who's dedicated to what they're doing and serious about what they're doing wants to push deeper and deeper and deeper into it. So we've been playing together for about a little over 9 years now. And so I've learned as time goes on, every year there seems to be like infinitely more to learn than I had learned, the year before. So, yeah, I mean, obviously it's difficult and extreme in many different ways. The music isn't easy. The fact that you're playing with a sheet of rubber on your face isn't easy.
That was my next question. That must have been a whole nother learning curve. My buddy, one of my best friends in the world, is the drummer for Ghost. I obviously can't say his name, but he's like, it's a fucking nightmare to wear the mask.
It's difficult. It's difficult when you're playing at elevation. For sure.
Oh yeah.
Mexico City kills you.
Well, so for instance, yeah, so we just played in Mexico City a month ago or something, and we've played there a number of times, but I always forget that it's like twice as high as Denver. It's like incredibly high up there. And so it was the first show of our tour. And we've been off for a couple weeks, and like there's no substitute for when we're actually all together. Like, practicing and stuff at home is helpful, but there's no substitute for what the actual act of playing in Slipknot will do to you. So when we're like there and we're going through some songs right before our first show back after like a month and a half, all of us are like, God damn, why is it so hard to breathe? And it's like, oh yeah, no, we're at crazy elevation. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah, no, it's not, but I knew that going into it. But it was something that we didn't even discuss throughout the first, we've been playing together for almost a year before I even played my first show with the band, as we were making this record. And so that moment, of like, okay, I got to get used to, playing with a mask. That was a huge thing that I understood about the band, obviously, but it just doesn't play nice with anybody. It is difficult. But but at this point though, 9 years later, like I don't really even notice it. It's just it feels weird to play these songs without it. You know what I mean?
Is there some weird music that you guys that people would not expect Slipknot to be doing, like in sound check, like you're just playing like some dinner jazz, just like when you're just screwing around in sound check or in rehearsal? Is there something like that would be surprising, or is it kind of straight to work with the Slipknot music at hand?
Possibly. I mean, one element of the band that a lot of people might not realize is that like everybody in the band is incredibly funny. Like we do like to joke around a lot, and so we joke around a lot with like music, like somebody will pull out like some really cheesy 80s riff and we'll start playing some,
hell yeah.
Back in Black.
We'll play some like Jimmy Buffett or something like that.
Love that. Dude.
But probably what might be even more surprising is like the stuff that we're listening to in our dressing room right before we play.
Yeah.
Celine
We'll
Dion.
go out there and we do our thing, and we take it really seriously, and it is serious music, but 2 minutes prior to that we were having like a dance party to the Electric Six in our
Oh my God. I'm picturing you guys all fully masked up in the dressing room, ready to go, just like hitting fucking Future or something like that. Whitney Houston, something.
Hey man, it like anybody, I'm sure when anybody is like driving their car or something, you're not listening to the exact same thing every single day. Like, we got to feel out the mood of what we're all feeling that night. And sometimes, we want like a, Electric Six party, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Whoever's DJing that pre-show set in the green room, that's an important job.
It is.
Well, I can tell you what they're not playing.
Corey is a great playlist creator in that sense. He will throw together some playlists that gets everybody moving and grooving.
Who's the nicest person in the band?
Nicest person in the band? That's difficult to say. I mean, everybody's nice. Everybody has their days where,
Who's the meanest person in the band?
Who's the
worst?
person?
Who's the worst person in the band?
Oh man, these are questions I can't answer. But
we weren't expecting you to.
I mean, we're all like different levels of, like it's like a sibling kind of, relationship. It's like I'm the youngest brother by like 15 years,
Yeah.
and stuff. So we all have, we have a certain brotherly family, like brothers but uncles, in a way, kind of family dynamics. So look, when you're traveling with each other for years, months and months and years on end, you do find those moments where it's like, okay, I'm gonna stick to my own,
of course,
over here.
Can I tell you a real funny story real quick? I was looking for this tweet because I know I screenshotted it. I couldn't find it. So this is 2014, may have been before you had fully come on board with Slipknot. But someone, I don't know who was running their Twitter at the time, tweeted, it was something along the lines of like, if I have to hear this fucking song Come With Me Now again one more time, I'm going to fucking lose it. Something along those lines. I don't know what it was.
That's his song.
Yeah. So I just think like that's my claim to fame, is the most metal thing I've done is piss off Slipknot, our song.
That's incredible.
Oh man, it really is incredible how everything's come together for you guys, and the fact that you're still out there just absolutely destroying shows left and right. I think it's too like kind of like coming into that environment. It's your real first big environment, and we talked about a learning curve, but like, did you have an initial oh shit moment of being on stage in a stadium or something like that, and feeling like your feet weren't quite underneath you yet when you're on stage with these guys that have been together forever, like, or was it just like you slid in, or was there one show in particular where you're like, I'm getting kind of lost here, I'm kind of slipping?
No, nothing like that comes to mind. I think the experiences I had prior to joining Slipknot allowed me to really understand what a role like that is. In particular, playing with Bruce and the E Street Band, when I started playing with them, I'd only been playing drums for 3 years. And
That's fucking crazy.
yeah. And so, taking on that responsibility and throwing myself into it completely, and having those experiences of, the first time playing in front of, 70, 80,000 people, and just having to figure it out, and trusting those people around me. And luckily with that situation, like that's literally my family,
Right.
those are people I've known ever since I was a really small child. So having that, experience to draw from, everything else has kind of like, I wouldn't say has fit kind of comfortably, but like I definitely have a frame of reference for understanding how to overcome like a high pressure situation like that. Anytime you do something new, there's definitely like a learning your footing of like, there's no substitute for playing, doing it for real. Like we could practice, we made a whole record over the course of that year, and we practiced a whole bunch. But nothing is a substitute for that first show. There's no way you can actually practice that with the adrenaline going, and you got 30,000 people in front of you, and it's live streamed to millions of people or whatever.
Nugs.net.
Yeah, well, so the thing there, and the trick that I had learned years prior was to not focus on any of that. The pressure only needs to exist between, myself wanting to live up to the moment, to live up to the expectations and creative energy of my bandmates. And that's all I need to be concerned about. I don't need to be concerned about how big of an audience is in front of the stage, that anyone's watching at all. All I need to focus on is just the music and my bandmates. And if we're all feeling good, that's all I really care about. So once you break it down to that simple, kind of way of looking at it, it's not intimidating anymore in that way. You get to kind of wrap your head around what maybe when I was younger that'd be difficult to comprehend, but kind of over the course of my life and in my teenage years into my 20s, having that kind of practice of just being able to put high pressure things to the side and just focus on what I'm in control of, then everything seems to be as comfortable as I'm able to get it, which is fine by me. And it makes it makes the process enjoyable. Then I'm not thinking about like, oh man, this is so crazy, this is such high pressure, blah blah blah. You're not able to enjoy the moment and artistically express yourself, because that's what we're all there to do in the first place. So if I'm preoccupied with like, oh shit, like stuff going sideways or whatever, then I'm not inserting myself within the moment. And to me, that's like the most important thing of all, is to celebrate that moment that we're sharing with each other as bandmates, that we're sharing with the people who are there to listen. And yeah, that kind of makes it a little more simple for me to understand.
I love that. I've always felt like no matter how big the crowd was that we're playing for or how hyped they are, nobody's having more fun than us on stage.
Facts.
And that always kind of, I felt like, came through, that we were playing for everybody else, but we were having fun together as musicians in a band, just doing what we love. And that kind of steered the show. I got another question. I have 8 million questions.
Okay.
As a lot of musicians know in drums, playing a straight 4 on the floor beat can be harder than playing a blast beat. What's harder, Springsteen shit or like Slipknot shit? Like what's that harder shit to play?
Ooh.
Yeah, they're both very different. I will say that like with Bruce, everything on stage is a flying V to where the apex is Bruce.
Yeah.
So that's where we're all hinged on that.
Mhm.
And so whether that's, that's the tempos of things. If I'm watching Bruce with his, keeping tempo with his foot, I know where he wants certain things placed, and he has an amazing physicality about him that kind of dictates like a conductor almost, kind of like a rock and roll conductor in that way, where he would call out songs that I've never heard of before, and I just have to follow his physicality and the way he was kind of guiding everybody on stage through a piece of music. And then 4 minutes later, you're like, oh man, I've just improvised a song that I've never heard of in front of like 60,000 people. Yes.
I just have to get this out of the way. I am the biggest Bruce Springsteen, the E Street fan on earth. I have the record right behind me.
Awesome.
I have thousands of questions, and I don't want to let this hinge on Bruce because we can get into that. But the one thing as a historian I want to say is your dad wasn't the first drummer of the E Street Band.
Right.
Your dad was the second drummer of the E Street Band. Did he give you any advice about stepping into a situation like how you did with Slipknot, like how he had to step into the E Street Band? Now it's a little bit different because Bruce wasn't what Bruce was before your dad was there, and Slipknot was where Slipknot was. But like, is that like a family tradition of yours now, stepping into big spots and crushing it?
No, it's definitely not anything that we've like spoken about. I mean, my first experience with that was subbing in for him. So as the third drummer in the E Street Band, that was a whole experience where that was a huge learning experience where I approached the drums a lot differently than my dad, especially at that time. I'd only been playing for 3 years. He had been playing for 40 something years. So there's a big, generational difference there, but we also had a lot in common, obviously. With that, it was kind of odd because we're two drummers splitting, we're playing in the same band, and I was playing the shows that he couldn't make, and vice versa or whatever. So it's very interesting throughout the course of that tour. I would play the song, Rosalita, different than he would, but we're still playing the same song and still carrying out the same energy and stuff like that. So that was quite interesting. But that was a huge lesson in just do your thing. You're not here for any other reason other than the people who want you to play here want you. They're not wanting somebody else. And so that was important, and that was really cool to to understand that kind of dichotomy, and especially to do that within the context of Bruce and the E Street Band. And then whether it's been any other band that I've played with that's existed, whether that's Kvelertak or Madball or Against Me or Slipknot, it's always just been I'm gonna approach this the way I'm gonna approach this, because I can't fake the funk. I'm not gonna play like somebody else.
I didn't know you had been in Against Me. I love Against Me.
Right on.
Wow.
Yeah, so to answer your question though, the Bruce stuff, I often equate it to like being that flying V. With Slipknot, it's just a 9-person full-on assault, everybody going full tilt all the time. And so there's definitely a crazy energy. A lot of guys in the band equate it to jumping out of an airplane at the beginning of our show, and it does feel a lot like that, I think. But yeah, it's just there are different music stylistically, I suppose, for sure. But to me, it all comes from the same place, and that's how you can draw similarities and parallels between all these things. For sure, both are high intensity situations that demand 100% of everybody on stage. So that's a commonality that that both projects have. And yeah, when you approach everything with 100% dedication, playing with Bruce is as difficult as playing with Slipknot, because if you're no matter what, if you're giving 100% of yourself to either thing, it's still 100% of yourself. So I never really have seen it's different kind of music, but I've never really seen that drastic of a distinction between the two. It just takes everything I got, and that's kind of what I'm used to.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, that's a great goddamn answer. You're well trained. You're well trained in media. Here's a question, because once again we're talking about that dichotomy. Do you have a favorite Slipknot record?
I like our new one. I think I'm always inspired by what we're doing, currently.
Right.
If you'd asked me a couple years ago, it probably would have been We Are Not Your Kind. And that record we worked on for 3 years.
Wow.
Just like toiling at it bit by bit, and really, like, we had a lot to dig through on that album, and I feel really proud of that record. But I'm always stoked on what we're up to currently. So I think The End So Far is my favorite. I think as far as like pushing myself out of my comfort zone to do things that are new and not be stagnant and try new things. This album, I think for a lot of us, is like that. It's quite a different record for Slipknot, probably one of the most experimental things the band has ever done. So I'm proud of that. And but I also think it's like, well, my favorite will probably be the next one.
Right.
But I'm always just super stoked on what we're doing currently.
Is there anything that you've noticed like different with, let's say, within the metal world in terms of how streaming and the new social media approach that's affecting hip hop, pop, like traditional rock releases? Is it any different in the metal world? Is there still more of a like album based appreciation, or has it kind of fallen into the same pattern?
It might be different. I'm not all too concerned with that, my concern is just like being in the process of the creation. And then whether however that gets sorted out is kind of not even up to me, like for instance, we just put out a song called Bone Church as a B-side to or actually more so like an addendum to our song Yen. We just released like a director's cut of the music video for Yen that features this song Bone Church. And we had started working on Bone Church back in like 2015, I want to say. I remember we were in a dressing room in Calgary and we started jamming on that song, and it just came out now. That's what, 8 years later?
Yeah.
So yeah, perhaps it does change things. Like, you have to find new and engaging ways to put your art out there and try to connect with as many people as possible. That's all a little bit beyond what I'm focused on. Like, I just want to focus on us making good songs, making good records, putting on good shows. And sometimes, songs that we're working on just don't make it on a record. Like, sometimes it'll be a song that I'm like incredibly proud of, and then a bunch of us are like super, super proud of, but it just doesn't find a way to fit on an album. So we'll kind of keep working at it, see, what we can make different, maybe analyze for ourselves why a certain song didn't make a certain album. And then if we feel comfortable, like we've gotten it across the finish line, then it's like, okay, that song is ready. Let's put it out on this new record or whatever. It's all like, I think it's helpful to be in that kind of state of flow where, hey, here's all this stuff that we're making. This segment of it can be a record, and let's, these songs kind of play nice together, but not necessarily for this album. So we'll keep working on it and whatever. But yeah, as far as how stuff gets released, if people even enjoy full records anymore, I don't know. I certainly do. I love when bands commit themselves to a full artistic vision. That's a collection of songs that's like really your expression of what you're going through, that collection of, for those years, like an album comes out in a moment in time, but it's reflective of a period of like 3 years in our life that we're like working on it or whatever.
So,
I feel like with metal fans though, like that is still one of those genres that people really do appreciate full like context bodies of work. Like I think about a band like Code Orange. They've been putting out great records, and I have a lot of friends in that metal world who are like an album, like something that Code Orange is going to put out, you have to like accept that in its full form and then listen through it. And I feel like Slipknot probably has a lot of that too.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, those are good friends and peers of ours in Code Orange, and, artists that we really respect. And I for one, really, I love whenever they do stuff. They just released something today.
Really?
A remix album, and that's a sharp band that's always pushing the the extremes of what they do, and I'm appreciative of that for sure. So, you know, and we like to surround ourselves with bands and artists and people that we respect in that same way. You know, we've taken Code Orange out a bunch, and it's incredibly inspiring when we're able to surround ourselves with that creative energy. Behemoth is another band that we play with quite a bit, and we're all, you know, we're big fans of them and how much they dedicate themselves to what they do. And yeah, it's you know, I'm very inspired by people who put together a cohesive vision like that. Because it is also, that's, you know, that's putting a lot of yourself out there for, you know, for judgment, for critique, for all that, you know, you're laying your soul on the line when you put all your thoughts. It's like, here's an hour-long encapsulation of like what, you know, I'm going through, what we're going through as a group, and how we see the world and reflect it out there. And then it's this whole thing that then it becomes something that's not even ours anymore. It belongs to everybody else. And so I like when artists dare to do that, you know, beyond just putting out a song here and there, or, you know, and that can be fun. And we've done that. You know, an EP would be cool as well, because I think you can get out like little short bursts of, you know, creative energy out there. But for me, like the real thing that I'm proud of is when you can like put blinders on for 3 years, like we did with We Are Not Your Kind, and just like work on it. And then when we put it out, it's like, that's the fucking album that we wanted to make. It's hard to get there, but I think it's a worthy endeavor for sure.
I gotta ask you, I want to get into the weeds a little bit about how 9 guys who are all adults with families, I assume, live across the country. How does that body of work come together? Are you guys pre-proing a little bit, then jumping into the studio and fleshing shit out? Are you all writing and sending each other ideas and then going to the studio to track them? Or do you spend 3 months in a studio hashing shit out together? What's the general, just broadside?
It's a mixed bag of stuff. It really is just kind of everything, you know, however anybody has any idea, it's all fair game. So for instance, like with the End So Far, that was a lot of working by proxy. We got together a couple times, you know, like Clown has a studio in Iowa that a couple of us, you know, met at and got some creative juices flowing there. But that, you know, during COVID, it was really difficult. Like, you know, we couldn't be in the same room at the same time, and this. It was difficult. So a lot of stuff came with like, I had to learn how to become I had to get adept at like self-recording at home. And so like I have like an electronic drum set up where I can just put that through a drum library, and I can have really good sounding drums where I can be like, oh, anybody's sending me a demo. You know, our kind of working operation since I joined the band, right when I joined, Jim Root, our guitar player, had a lot of like structures of like, here's like a verse to a chorus to a bridge to another chorus to an outro. You know, he's putting together these things, and he would kind of hand me a demo. And like when I first joined the band, we went into a studio after we were like, okay, we're doing this, and we're, you know, let's start working on new songs. He would hand me a demo on like a flash drive or something and be like, all right, go into that room in 20 minutes, come back out, sit on your drums and do what you would do, you know, play what you want to play to, you know, to help send this song in whatever direction. Cause that was a whole element of it where it's like, okay, so he can, you know, he understands where we came from as a band, and he can play our old songs, but how is this creative element gonna go? Because if I have no ideas, then it gets pretty stagnant pretty quickly. So that was exciting where, you know, I'll kind of have like a rough sketch where he's kind of programmed some drums to guitar riffs and a lot of stuff. Like he'll add a lot of layers of, you know, keyboards and stuff like that to a song. And then I'll go in and kind of do what I'm feeling driven to do rhythmically, and maybe that'll send songs in some, you know, some direction that it wasn't heading before. That's kind of my intent. And so when we're all away from each other, I'll get sent an idea where it's like, hey, here's a collection of riffs, here's like a, you know, a verse and a chorus, or here's like a full song idea. You know, what are you thinking? How do you want to approach this? And so then it'll get sent to me, and I kind of just sit with like, okay, well, I'm hearing, elements of this guitar hook that I could accent, or or whatever. Sometimes stuff will have vocals on it as well, so having Corey introduce his vocals in the demo stage of stuff is incredibly helpful as well, because that'll help, okay, we've identified this is going to be the chorus. And sometimes when we're writing songs without vocals yet, Corey will flip like, oh, we thought the whole time we thought that was going to be the verse. Now that's the chorus hook. Okay, that's great.
When I think of a band like Slipknot too, and I think about the level of like catharsis and like the way Corey writes, I always envision like it coming from Corey first, but to hear that you guys are building it out and then Corey's throwing stuff on top is actually really interesting to me. It's a different than what I had envisioned in my own head.
Well, that's not to say that it doesn't happen, the inverse way as well. Like that's happened plenty of times where it's a lyric that we're all jumping on, and like a lyric will come first that will inspire a mood of, a guitar riff or a drum beat or something like that, and that's how it shakes out. My favorite way of us approaching it has been when, we also have like a mobile studio on the road, which is, we call it the jam room, is where, I'll spend most of my day in there warming up for our show, playing with the guys. We'll just, go over songs and just kind of get the blood flowing. Because I prefer to hit the stage already hot, already blood boiling, sweat pouring. I'm in it. That's when I like to hit the stage, when I'm already in it. So we try to get there as best we can before the show in our jam room. But we're also documenting ideas. A lot of We Are Not Your Kind was written that way. And actually quite a bit of The End So Far was written that way. Like the song Medicine for the Dead, we had been workshopping that song in our jam room since our first tour together in 2014.
Wow.
I mean, it just takes, like I said, it takes a lot of patience. You're just chipping away at an iceberg of trying to carve something out of ice. And that ends up being a song like that. Other times, songs like, The -1 and Custer got written in 2 hours because we're like feeling this impulsive musical connection, lightning in a bottle kind of moments that I think a lot of bands have that as well, where you could be bashing your head against a wall for like months on end and not create anything that's up to your standards. And then you'll write something that you're more stoked about in 2 hours. And that's how sometimes it works for us. But my favorite is when we find something that we really like and we just kind of work on it together in a room. And we have done that where we've like We Are Not Your Kind, we learned that record playing it together. And before we even press record at all, we would get into a room and play the whole record, start to finish. And wow. And that was awesome. That's an incredible experience where it's like, you're really putting in the hours of collaboration. And to me, like, those are my favorite. That's the magic of being in a band. You don't get that, unless you're all on the same page and working towards a common goal. That's the sweet spot for me.
Jay, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Have you ever considered getting into the podcast game? Because you make me feel very inferior at my job. Like you're a fucking very eloquent guy, man. This is fucking awesome. That was me sitting there listening to you like synthesize that thought, being like, this guy's better at this than me. Like legitimately better at this than me.
Well, it's what I care about the most in life is playing music, playing music with my bandmates in Slipknot. It's the most when you're able to enjoy the process like that, it is very fun, and we take music that perhaps I wouldn't use the word fun to describe our music because it's just not. It's very, it takes a lot of energy and you need to, I don't know, it's a very cathartic process. But when you're in the process and you're in that flow state, it becomes very fun. So I certainly, enjoy that. And when, if it's the most important thing in your life, it's like, yeah, I love, sharing that aspect of what we do.
You said you liked, I want to just go back a little bit. You said you like hitting the stage, kind of blood flowing, ready to go, like you've fully warmed up. How much do the masks and the kind of the theatrics of it play into the psychology of like changing how the performance occurs versus just if it didn't exist in that way?
Sure. Yeah, it definitely is a thing. I kind of view the mask as like, that's the last key that I turn before I'm able to walk onto that stage. I have kind of like we're more like a sport. We're more like an athletic team. We're more like a team than we are a band in a lot of ways. With the sheer number of people and we all wear the same thing and this and that. We kind of have like a team mentality and a sports mentality about what we do. It is incredibly physical. So with that in mind, I have kind of a running checklist every day where I kind of live the exact same day every single day when we're on tour, if I'm in control of that. If it's like, sometimes we're like flying on a show day and that kind of sucks. And, I'm not able to get into my flow state that I prefer, but I eat the same exact thing every day. I drink the pretty much the same amount of water every day. I know exactly when I'm going to have my pre-show meal. I know exactly when I'm going to start getting into the jam room and start stretching and this and that. So like, that's all part of it. And then, once I'm like, we'll run through, I'll run through a bunch of songs by myself. We'll run through, maybe 2, 3, 4 songs together in the room. And then by the time we're like done playing like the third or fourth song or something, our tour manager is coming in the room. He's like, you guys are on stage in like 5 minutes. And so then it's like a mad dash to be like, oh, fuck, I gotta put on that shit. I gotta put on my mask. And then, sometimes that works out the best because then you don't have any time to like cool down and it's just like, oh shit, I gotta throw this on and run out there, and then you're totally in it. Those are my favorite ways of like approaching stage time. But the mask is the last turn of the key. That's the last thing that happens before we're all together, and we have our little band kind of rituals that we do before every show that just kind of brings us all to makes sure we're all on the same page, and then we're about to go out and do this thing that it means a lot to us. We know it means a lot to everybody who's there, so we're going to give it everything we got. But so we all have kind of like those individual things. I think the mask is all of our final key to that door that unlocks the stage for us. And it is I suppose that is kind of unique for a band that wears masks, for sure.
Well, I mean, I love it because it's like, even to take from this as a band that doesn't wear a mask, like there's a symbological, however the fuck you say that word, symbolical aspect to it that I think can be brought in to any band or any team that's doing something, that there's an element of theatrics that is not just purely theatrics for the sake of theatrics. It serves a purpose to change perhaps your inner psychological state to give a better performance or do a better thing,
When I played college baseball, I was not ready to go into the game unless I put on eye black first. It like turns you into a warrior in a way. It was a psychological trick that said it's fucking game time to go.
Well, it's protection, right? It's a way for you to, protect the vulnerable aspects of yourself, and maybe there are ways that we wouldn't quite put ourselves out there if we didn't put that on, as opposed to when we do put it on, because we get to become something different than we are, throughout our daily walking lives. I get to tap into something else that isn't who I am right now, speaking with you guys without my mask on. It's a layer of, I think, kind of artistic protection where you get to use the guy that is as a vehicle to get those things out there.
Yeah. Okay, what we need is a show on NBC, The Unmasked Metal Band, like the opposite of the masked singer, where you're forced to perform without that that layer.
Well, I've been long advocating for us to do Casual Fridays, where we, or a Halloween show where we don't wear our masks.
You wear a suit and tie.
I think that would be, pretty frightening for a lot of people coming to see us. Like, whoa, they're just guys.
But that's what I was thinking. Like, as a 20-year diehard Slipknot fan, I was like, imagine being the security guard outside the jam room, just fucking like. That raw energy be so sick. Jay, I have another question. What number are you? You know how everybody has a number, right? I think still
numberless.
Number. Okay, I was gonna say it's like when you put on the mask, you turn into number 9, but now you're numberless. So sick.
Jay, we've kept you for long enough, man, and you are more than welcome to come back whenever you'd like to. I have 2 rapid fire questions before we get out of here. I asked you your favorite Slipknot album. I'm going to ask you a personal question for me that I've gone through with everybody that I know. Your favorite Springsteen record?
Ooh, my favorite Springsteen record is Darkness on the Edge of Town.
That's the right answer. Let's go. That's a correct answer. Hell
I love
yes. And then my last question is, how overblown was the Machine Gun Kelly thing? Remember when that happened like last year? Like I remember we talked about it on the podcast a lot, but I felt like that was like more media hyping that up than anything.
No comment. No comment.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's a great way.
Who
To
need, you know.
Dude, fuck that. But I would be remiss if I didn't actually try and see if I could get anything out of that. But
None of
dude,
us had anything to do with that.
that's what I'm saying. That's what it felt like. It felt completely like something that was out of left field. But dude, honestly, I'm kind of out of the metal world. It's never been my thing. Kenny is a diehard metal guy, and for this to me was like such an interesting conversation. Once again, you synthesize everything beautifully, but just like I don't know, I feel like I have more of an appreciation for it now. And I want you to know, like, you gave that to me through this conversation.
Yeah, and
So
I really
thank-
appreciate you taking the time and talking to us, man. I've been texting the guys all week, like
all week.
you know, we got Jay. I'm such a huge fan, and it means a lot to be able to talk to you. So appreciate the time, man.
Seriously,
Well,
man.
thank you guys for being interested. It's awesome to talk with you guys today.
Yeah, man.
No.
Thank you so much.
Everybody, I don't have to say this, but go see Slipknot on tour. Listen to the records. Jay, you're an absolute legend, man. We can't thank you enough.
Appreciate it. Yeah, come on out to a show.
Yeah,
We
thanks.
will.
Yeah.
We'll make Kenny wear a business suit and I'll wear a mask.
Please do. Please do.
Thanks,
Jay
man.
Weinberg, thank you so much, man.
All right. Take care, guys.